Very good indeed. Who are you? Another number two, another lackey? Yes, sir, no, sir, we'll crack him, sir. You can depend on me, sir. Very well. Let's get on with this charade. Who am I? John Drake, number 6. Patrick. I'm all of these things, wouldn't you say? And who are you? Are you, sir, my audience? If we are to have a successful, i.e. entertaining and stimulating evening, must I address myself to you alone? Or rather, as is the way of things, must I address a much larger, a broader audience simultaneously? If I do, I should have to dilute my story a little, break it down into more easily digestible pieces. A little bit like Randall and Hopkirk deceased, or the Saint, or any other of Sir Lou Grade's creations. That's what you prefer, isn't it, Lou? Something a bit simple. Good versus evil. White hats and black hats and, oh, a little bit of crumpet for the hero. Can't go 50 minutes an episode without a bit of crumpet. That's what it was like back then. Here, the 1960s. Television heroes, commercial television, good versus evil, simple tales, something to while away the time, to sell soap powder and toothpaste. Don't confuse the audience. They don't want to think, do they? They just want their pipe and slippers and something to entertain. A few relatively cheap thrills, a glimpse of an exotic country, a taste of the good life. Is that what you'd prefer, my audience? That I should aim low, treat you gently, make it easy? Very well. Once upon a time, you're here to answer questions, number 6. Questions. Why did you resign? You will tell us. I am not your number 6. I resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. My life is my own. Where is this place? Is this a dream? Or is it a party? This is a dreamy party! If you insist on living the dream, you may be taken for mad. I like my dream. Whose side are you on? Oh, but that would be telling, wouldn't it? Unlike me, many of you have accepted the situation of your imprisonment and will die here like rotten cabbages. Did you like that? Good line, that. I like it. It was written by a very good friend of mine, one Paddy Fitz. Very close, Paddy and I. A good line, but true. Very true. How many of us are cabbages, I wonder? How many? Any cabbages in here tonight? Well, don't worry. I like cabbages. My name, for the sake of argument, for tonight, is Patrick. Fitzpatrick Joseph McGoohan, born 19th of March 1928, to Thomas McGoohan and Rose Fitzpatrick, Astoria, Queens, New York City. Strict Roman Catholics with a strong sense of morality. Time of my birth is missing. You see, they don't know everything, do they? 4:31 a.m. there. Yes, I'm a Yank. Is that a surprise? Does it matter where I was born? I didn't see much of it as my parents returned us to our homeland before my first birthday. County Leitrim. In terms of population, the smallest county in Ireland. Bit of a change from the Big Apple. William Butler Yeats was fascinated by the place. Glencar Waterfall was an inspiration to the poet. He mentions it in one of his earliest pieces, The Stolen... How ironic. The Stolen Child. Where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar. Oh, come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the whale's more full of weeping than you can understand. I don't know about you, but it's often been said that I am away with the fairies. But in a world more full of weeping, I trust you will understand. We can treat his folly with kindness, knowing that soon his wild spirit will quieten and the foolishness will fall away to reveal a model citizen. That day you will never see. How about a later poem, The Second Coming? Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold! Do you mind if I smoke? Oh, I bet some of you do, but please, indulge me. It's the 1960s where I am. We haven't quite grown up yet. I'll rephrase that. We haven't been made to grow up yet. What was that? Oh, yes, here, now, where we always are, in the moment. You are here, I trained to be a Roman Catholic priest, you know. When my mother was pregnant with me, she swore to God that should I be born a boy, I would enter the priesthood. I was a good boy and I loved my mother, and so I tried. For 15 years I tried. Interesting time, so many questions, and there were answers readily available. Whatever puzzled you, whatever troubled you, there was an answer. The trouble I had was accepting those answers. Their answers. You weren't allowed to question them, you see. I was not allowed to question. Questions are a burden to others, number 6. Answers a prison for oneself. A still tongue makes a happy life. So, I left the church behind. But one can never truly leave. The church is inside you, embedded deep. No, one can never truly escape. 7 years I spent in Ireland. We had to move again. My parents had a farm, you see, but soil very poor, very unproductive. Despite all the hard work my family put into it, God didn't love our farm. Was it because I didn't love him enough? Was it my fault? We were flogging the proverbial dead horse, and I've never been one to hurt a dumb animal, even a proverbial one. And so we tried America, and now we set our sights on England. In particular, South Yorkshire, specifically the city of Sheffield. I was an Irish boy in an English city. Different to everybody around me. I had to learn to look after myself. I had to be strong. I had to think. And so I joined the school boxing team and soon became captain. Being able to use one's brain and one's fists gave me a head start in life. Power. I had the power to be me. Old school chums would later recall that I was quiet and unobtrusive. One even referred to me as a rather lonely soul. I was never really lonely. I just preferred my own company. What's wrong with that? Even as a child, there is a puzzle within your mind. When I have found it, I will refine it and tune it, and you will play our game. At age 16, I was a shy, ungainly youth, gangling, clumsy. I was one of the Wallflower Delights, a pack of local teenagers who would pay threepence a time to attend Saturday dances at St. Vincent's Youth Club. I used to wear a long Humphrey Bogart-style raincoat and a hat sometimes to cover my body and my eyes. I was one of those boys you would see hanging around the periphery of everything. We drank lemonade and were too terrified to ask any of the girls to dance. I was an outsider. Where was my place? What was my purpose? I knew it wasn't the church. I never abandoned God, just the church. One Saturday, Father MacDonough asked me if I'd like to take part in a play they were putting on at the club. All I had to do was carry a bucket of coal across the stage. I think I did it rather well. In fact, I was complimented on my performance. That night, I discovered that being on stage was a much better cloak than my old trench coat. I could hide in plain sight. I liked that. It wasn't long before I graduated to speaking roles, and I played Mr. Darcy in A Pride and Prejudice. Easter 1945, I was 17. My mother, Rose, used to come to rehearsals. I think she wanted to keep an eye on the teenage Darcy, strutting his stuff in front of all those pretty young girls. I never very comfortable around them. Was it my mother watching me? Somebody is always watching. I knew I had to behave. I had to be a good boy, a good man. When I left school, I took a variety of fairly mundane jobs. I worked in a local steel wire mill and on a chicken farm where I discovered that I was allergic to chickens. And in a bank, things came to a sudden grinding halt one day when I became ill with bronchial asthma. I spent 6 months in bed 6 months gave me a lot of time to think about what I wanted to do with my life, such as it was. When I recovered, I joined the Sheffield Repertory Company. I just walked in one day on a whim. I just needed work. It was the happiest time of my life. I did everything, and I mean everything. I was an ASM, which stands for General Dog's Body. But I wanted to learn, and I did learn a great many things. Untrained, I worked my way up. I had the best training there was on the job. One of the most terrifying jobs was prompting. I used to sit by the side of the stage following performances with a script, providing a reassuring safety net for the actors. Well, one evening an actor fell ill, and as I knew the script backwards, I was in, and I never looked back. Within 2 years, I was a leading player, and I met a young actress called Joan Drummond, rather trained and a good deal more polished than I. I remember our first rehearsal together. I was shaking for 2 days afterwards. We married 1951. 19th of May, 1951 to be exact. The ceremony took place between a rehearsal of The Rivals and an evening performance of The Taming of the Shrew. Excuse me. 1 minute. I love you with all of my heart. Forgive me, I write a love note every day. Foolish, I know, but you can never tell somebody you love them too many times, can you? Our first daughter, Catherine, was born a year later, followed by 2 more girls, Anne and Frances. I couldn't have wished for a better life. Spiritually, I was a millionaire. My friend, Paul Eddington, also met his wife at Sheffield Rep. It was a good time. I remember Paul when we came to cast The Prisoner in 1966. The Prisoner. I'm coming to that. Bond. James Bond. He had a truckload of women, of course. Countless, falling at his feet, swearing undying love. He would take them to bed as easily as one would take one's hot water bottle. They were stone cold by morning, dead or abandoned. Not very nice. Sex and death. Plenty of that in the movies, not my style at all. Some people have called me puritanical. Prudish, even. They wanted my character, John Drake in Danger Man, to be as equal a Lothario as Bond. I politely declined this obsession with titillation. Why? In the context of the show, would an undercover agent with his very life on the line find the time, the inclination, the desire? I don't think so. And there were my daughters to consider, my 3 daughters. Did I really want them to see their father kissing and fondling an endless array of willing women every week on their television screens in their homes? You can't fake a kiss, touch, a breach. I liked Sheffield. But in 1952, we left, reluctantly. The time had come for me to earn more than rep could pay, and that meant London. I never had a career plan. After my marriage, I simply wanted to provide for my family. It was a hell of a struggle. Eventually, I found work. I had seasons in Coventry, Windsor, and Bristol. My big breakthrough came in 1955 at the Garrick Theatre in a play called Serious Charge. I played a young vicar accused of homosexuality. It wasn't a done thing back then, you see. Patrick McGoohan gives an outstanding performance, said one review. McGoohan plays a man of high Christian ideals without making him appear priggish, said another. I was very fond, very proud of Serious Charge. It was a superb piece of writing. Imagine my feelings a few years later when it was turned into a rather trendy movie featuring the on-screen debut of the sensational, as he was referred to in the opening credits, Cliff Richard. Young Cliff had barely a word of dialogue as a teenage delinquent singing bawdy songs in coffee bars with the likes of Jess Conrad. One such effort being Living Doll, in which he finds his soul satisfied by ogling an attractive young woman. Sir Cliff was easily pleased back then. I certainly don't recall any such scenes in the play that I did. The film was directed by one Terence Young, who would later go on to make the first James Bond film. I remembered what he'd done to Serious Charge when I was asked to play 007. Mr. Young, I'd rather be a chicken farmer than be James Bond. After Serious Charge, studio casting offices began to take note. This led to a day's work dressed in RAF uniform, where all I had to do was bend over and pat a small dog in the Dambusters. At least I didn't have to say its name. Then there were 2 days as a masseur in I Am a Camera, and a whole 5 days in a costume drama with a rather tired and emotional Errol Flynn. I still maintained that the only serious work for an actor was in the theatre, and so I auditioned for Orson Welles' production of Moby Dick. Orson Welles. Here was a man I admired. A man with vision and enormous creativity, a genius in fact. He'd conceived of a production, a stage production of Moby Dick. In the story of the hunt for a giant whale, there was to be no ship and no whale. I remember my audition. I walked into the Duke of York's Theatre one Thursday morning. It was chaos. Dozens of people milling about in the dimly lit auditorium when all of a sudden a working light hit the stage, and there he was. This enormous man, towering above everything, a script and a cigar in one hand and a megaphone in the other. A script was thrust into my hand and I began to read. Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long, I thought that I would sail about. I stopped. Mr. Wells seemed to be chatting. In fact, I could hear him quite clearly. Chatting to somebody about the cost of a tin of paint. Thankfully, he noticed I'd stopped reading. Why did you stop, sir? I thought you might like to listen. I can talk and listen at the same time. Please, carry on. I began again. At the beginning, in case he missed anything. Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long, I thought that I would sail about... I stopped again. He was doing it again. I told you to carry on, sir. I tried. One last time. This time, a little bit more projection. Call me Ishmael, some... I hardly got through my first line when he was doing it again. He was mumbling and gabbing to some young lad about what was on the menu for lunch. That was it. Threw the script on the floor, began to make my way towards the door. Before I got there, calls out to me. Please, Mr. McGoohan, would you play Starbuck for me? It was one of the most exciting moments of my career. I played Starbuck, Captain Ahab's first mate. Wells played Ahab, of course. The old rogue had no intention of auditioning me at all. He just wanted to goad me to see if I had faith in myself, pride, integrity. He must have liked what he saw. This began for me one of the most exciting and rewarding and exhilarating experiences I have ever had in the theatre. Compressing the scope of Melville's sea epic into confined dramatic form was a challenge in itself. Working with Orson Welles was an even greater challenge. His premise was to have a troupe of actors under the sway of a dictatorial director suddenly ceasing rehearsals for King Lear and putting on Melville's classic without elaborate props, costume, or scenery. Quite a task. Guess what? He did it too. A man without fear. A man without fear of failure. He had the guts to see his vision through, to try something absolutely crazy. He reached for the stars, and he caught himself a hell of a big fish. The production only lasted 3 weeks, but it was an enormous success. Kenneth Tynan was in awe of our leader. Mere possible things such as Proust or War and Peace would confine Orson Welles. He chose Moby Dick, with its supremely unstageable villain, the giant whale. The whole enterprise is an example of pure theatrical megalomania. Pure theatrical megalomania. I learned a lot from Orson Welles. The big screen beckoned again, and I signed a contract with the rank organisation. I was a disgruntled, insubordinate seaman in passage home. Then I flew to Morocco to shoot Zarak, in which I played a disgruntled, insubordinate soldier. In High Tide at Noon, I played a disgruntled, insubordinate... Rather fond of hell drivers. Even though I was cast again as a disgruntled, rather insubordinate fellow. We had quite a cast for that one. Stanley Baker, William Hartnell, Sidney James, Herbert Lom, Gordon Jackson, and a couple of young unknown Scots, David McCallum, Sean Connery. Nor the Moon by Night was the only play, the only film rather, that I did for rank in which I did not play the bad guy. We had quite a stressful time on that one. A location shoot out in Africa. My co-star was one Belinda Lee, one of the top box office attractions of the day. Unfortunately, she was having a rather torrid time of it in her private life and managed to completely disrupt shooting by suddenly flying off to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
She tried to kill herself. Poor girl. She returned eventually, and we finished the film. A few years later, she died in a rather horrific car crash in California. She was 25. Poor girl. And we all just pawns in some celestial game of chance. Poor girl. Dreadful business, absolutely dreadful. Nor the Moon by Night was finally released in America in 1959 under the new improved title of Elephant Gun. How poetic. I was fed up with the film business by then. I was fed up with the parts that rank were giving me. I felt underused, as though my time were being wasted, and one's time is very, very precious indeed. One never quite knows just how much of it one has. It was a mutual decision. I left rank. All or nothing! 1959. All the plays I did, all the training, everything came together in Brand. And that is one of the reasons why I did not want to do any more plays. That piece of work is what I wanted to leave on the boards. Ibsen's play was bigger than me. I found it to be bigger than Lear, an extraordinary piece of work. I was on stage the entire time, the crying out to be all or nothing. It's hard. People are afraid of it. I admitted I was obsessed with Brand. A tortured, intense, uncompromising priest who put faith in God above everything. Distant